Welcome, everybody. This is our Soul Path Community Friday class. And the topic today, of course, is the July 2025 forecast. I welcome you all, and I welcome you to take in a deep breath and feel the beauty of this ocean picture, the water. Here's our ephemeris for the month that you can refer back to. You'll see that we have a lot more planetary movement this month than we had in June. That we have Venus moving into Gemini as well as Uranus. We have the Sun going into Leo, Venus moving into Cancer. So four, planetary movements into new signs. But we also begin retrograde season. We've had Pluto retrograde, but now we'll have Neptune and Saturn that have both just recently moved into Aries in the last few months. They will both go retrograde. And we'll have a Mercury retrograde as well. So Neptune and Saturn that have just gone into Aries, and they're going to go back over the next few months, do a little dance in Pisces, and then finally stay in Aries. So it is a very changeable month. And as we know, all of the outer planets are in the process of changing signs this year as part of this kind of on-ramp into the new world that we're moving into. And so, you're likely to be feeling more of this upheaval. It's a little like whiplash a little bit. And the planets have moved in one direction, but now they've got to go back and double check and triple check and review where they have gone so far, these first steps. Now, one of the major uh, configurations for the whole month, I normally focus on new moon and full moon, but I've decided that I'm also going to focus in these forecasts on major configurations, like if, for a week or two, we've got a square or an opposition with some intense planets. I'm not going to dial it down into the more personal planets. We do that on the weekly forecast. But for this one, I thought it was important to look forward and see what these outer planets are doing, because I'd already noticed in people's charts that the outer planets have been hanging around approximately 1 to 2, maybe 3 degrees. And for people that have any planets or angles in those early degrees, and maybe you could also say in the very highest degrees of the sign previous, there is this sense of the pressure cooker. And so here we really see it. Now I've picked this chart for July 7th when the actual lines start to show up, the aspect lines that the computer generates. And these lines, though, are in place for the entire month. From the beginning of July to the end of July, these planets are in connection to each other. We have Pluto, of course, right now that's at almost 3 degrees of Aquarius. Pluto is the first one of these outer planets that has moved into its new sign where it's going to be for 20 years. And it is staying. So this year it's traveling from 1 degrees to 4 degrees and back down to one. And next year will go up a little bit farther to 5 or 6 degrees. Now, so it's kind of holding the space. This is Pluto transforming all things about radical change, awakening, revolution, things in upheaval. And certainly we feel this. We feel the exposure of chaotic energy. And we feel both the fight for progress, liberation, revolution, all the freedom and expression energies that we've been fighting for decades. And we also feel the shadow side of Aquarius, which is the authoritarian regime, the right wing lack of empathy, uh, There's words that want to come through that I don't want to say. That we're also seeing that kind of overly intellectualized, cold-hearted way of being. And so we've got this fight going on right now throughout the world, not just in America, but throughout the world. There is definitely a fight between what many of us would call progress and what a, group of people in this world who want to take things back to the 50s or the 1800s, what they would call progress. So we've got Pluto doing that deep dive into the underlying shadow material. Then we have Uranus, which you can see by the 7th, has moved into the sign of Gemini, be augmented by Venus for a few days in there. And Uranus will move into Gemini for a few months and will retrograde back. We're not going to spend a lot of time in Gemini. It's just a dipping in. It's an appetizer. Now, I believe, and I'm sure many other astrologers believe as well, that Uranus and Gemini in a trine to Pluto, which more or less, whether it's, in air signs or Uranus moving back to Taurus a little bit, coming back to Gemini, whether it's in sign or not, this brings a lot more speed to the radical changes that we're in for at this point in time. Uranus creates sudden changes, shock, uh, new ideas, inventions, and can, definitely it is the Aquarian planet. It can be quite often is the indicator of progressive radical change. We see all of the demonstrations going on in this country and around the world. We're definitely looking at Uranus and Pluto and this budding trine they have that comes out of the fact that they were together in the mid 60s and launched these changes. And I must say, as much as I feel pretty discouraged to wake up day after day and read the news, and especially this morning, reading that the Supreme Court has, given, at least for now, more power to the presidency, not to be bound by judges' rulings. Even though that is happening, I can't help but go back to the 60s and everything that was birthed then when these two planets came together in Virgo. And that was the launch of all of the progressive movements that have, stabilized in the last 20 years to a much greater degree in terms of gay rights, women's rights, much more energy devoted to how we can have a more equitable society. So it's reasonable to believe on an astrology level, even if we don't have evidence at this moment, that this is a time period when these planets that started out with a synodic cycle where they came together and that they tested that cycle between 2008 and 2020, according to Rick Tarnas's way of looking at things and giving wide orbs. That's our square, our testing of revolution and transformation, freedom and progress, and uncovering the hidden agendas, that now things can align together. And we also, at the same time, have each one of these planets in a sextile with the Neptune-Saturn alignment, which is a synodic cycle that's exactly burst on February 20th next year, 2026, but is, as you can see, they're very close together. They are operating already as a unit. We are feeling these two energies. And at the highest levels, we can think of Neptune being all about high love, spirituality, transcendent creativity, compassion, oneness, just the best of who we are as souls embodied. and Saturn here to help stabilize that, to build it into the fabric of society. And remember, Saturn and Jupiter joined at half a degree of Aquarius at the end of 2020. So Saturn and Jupiter as a social structure, we're a quarter of the way in, and we had the exact square last month. So we have the energy of these two planets, which, again, at their best is very high. It is like new ideas, Aries, fighting for what's right, going for it, making it happen, and bringing these two powerful energies together. But, just like we see the shadow on the Pluto right now, the shadow of Neptune and Saturn can be illusion, lies, confusion, hidden agendas. And Saturn can be those in power, the authorities, the government, anybody who is, in charge of structures. So we can have some of what we're seeing here, where there is this, planning going on behind the scenes, and there are, new ideas. And fundamentally, what it comes down to, just as we had in the Civil War when Neptune moved from Pisces to Aries, we have, people fighting for what they believe in. And Neptune Saturn will bring that home to you. The same time, we have Jupiter now gone into Cancer for a year, and we have the belief system, personal belief system, world belief system that is now infused, hopefully, with more caring energy, loving, nurturing, family-oriented caring. And this can also, though, be an excessive amount of patriotism. People going too far, going overboard with protecting self-interest. So we have to, guard against that as we move forward. Now here's our first full moon for the month. It is July 10th, 4:36 p.m. in Washington at 18 degrees and 50 minutes of Capricorn. We'll just call it 19, rounded off. And you can see that the sun will be in Cancer, moon in Capricorn. So there's your full moon. We can break that down and say there's focusing on the sign of Cancer, opening up, shining the light to that sense of love, caring, family, emotional security. And the moon asks us to let go of any habit patterns or traditions that no longer serve us. And in Capricorn, that can be rigidity, uh, coldness, excessive work, anything that keeps us basically from the heart. And the potential with a full moon is that we experience this fullness and this integration between the two vibrations, that we have the heart and we have accomplishment coming together. And we also consider in a full moon what we're letting go of, what is complete. Sometimes we're standing on a plateau and we're part the way there on a project, some agenda that we have. And sometimes we feel like, yes, I'm at the mountaintop. And what we know about mountaintops is that we spend a lot of time trying to get there. And normally when we get there, it's kind of like a little deflation, it's like, yeah, okay. It's the journey. It is the journey. And we have to stop and remind ourselves this all the time. No matter what's going on around us, it is what we're experiencing in the moment, every breath, every step. And so, as we're in a full moon period, it's a great time to honor what we've accomplished in small ways and large, and to take stock of where we are, to hold a place of gratitude, and then see where we're going next, which will be picking up in 2 weeks after that with a new moon. Now we have I think I'm saying here square the lunar nodes, which is not true at all. I'll take that off. Basically, the lunar nodes, though, are in a sextile trine uh, to this full moon. So the south node in Virgo conjunct Mars, Mars adding emphasis and maybe a certain assertion or aggression to Virgo, where we can have inner critic, uh, excess amounts of analysis, worry, anxiety. And we are in a long and 18-month process that started the beginning of this year, where we are meant to be letting go of those excess Virgo traits. And if you have strong Virgo planets in your chart, you know what I'm talking about. You're probably feeling it right now. You're getting the message of like, oh, this is too much, you know. I analyze charts for too long before I do the reading. I'm overly worried about what's going to happen. So Mars will be activating that process of letting go of the shadowy Virgo, yet, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, that we have still that ability to be of service, to be humble, to be devoted, to solve problems, to be skillful. All of our lovely Virgo traits. We don't want to let go of those. And we will be supported in this process by the North Node in Pisces. Surrendering, trusting, doing our spiritual work, making sure we're doing deep conscious breathing every day. You can call it pranayama, yoga breathing. It doesn't matter what it is. We just need to keep taking those deep, slow breaths, exhaling completely, and getting ourselves grounded, connected to higher frequency energies. Uh, you can see here, yep, see our little triangles still in place. Venus conjunct Uranus. Venus conjunct Uranus can indicate some changes and challenges in your relationship. So sometimes when Venus and Uranus come together, we get a really clear idea of what our true needs are. And we want to live authentically in our relationships. And in Gemini, we're probably going to say something about it. So be aware of that, be mindful and conscious, and bring the compassion in, bring the Neptune in. There is the sextile to the Saturn Neptune, where understanding what your agenda is and your new directions, but having the compassion to communicate about it. And of course, Pluto continuing, moving very slowly, still at 3 degrees, retrograde, digging in, asking us to look at the path we've been on for most of this year so far, where we are excavating what motivates this world. Just to note that Chiron is still in Aries, and that means that we're doubly asked to connect to what is true for us, what lights us up, where our sense of new movement and growth is. And we'll see as the month progresses that Mercury in the sign of Leo gets more and more connected to Chiron. So we have that mind energy that is thinking about things, processing, and maybe also communicating what our needs are. The sign of Leo often gets us into a feeling of entitlement. And sometimes that can be too much, too much Leo, too much entitlement. But for many of us who carry a lot of water or Virgo and have a tendency to give too much and be in an imbalance, a little bit of Leo goes a long way. Now, the new moon, July 24th, 3:11 p.m. in the East Coast, 2 degrees and 8 minutes of Leo. Speaking of Leo, So we'll just call that 2 for good measure. And this is what I was talking about earlier, that with these outer planets at the early degrees, 1, 2, 3 degrees. So at this point, at the point of the new moon, Uranus is almost at 1 degree of Gemini. Saturn, 2 degrees, Saturn, Neptune, both at 2, both retrograde by that point. 2.5 for Pluto. And now we bring in this new moon at 2 degrees of Leo. Remember, when we have outer planet transits, they are slowly doing their work. They'll stay in a particular degree for some months or, back and forth for a couple of years. And it takes a moon usually to set it off, and especially a new moon. So, in your own personal lives and in our world events, I think we can expect to see something new that is launched as we are, at the end of July. So, July 24th is the actual new moon. If you have something to launch, if you're launching a website, a business, a relationship, a self-improvement path, something that you want to do to take care of your body, mind, spirit. Thinking about launching a couple of days after a new moon, just as the little crescent starts to form in the sky. Of course, you'll have a Mercury retrograde connected to it, and that's not always the best for a full, hard, deep launch on something, but you will be in a process of rethinking what it is you are creating, creative expression being an indicator of Leo. Um, it's likely that, you're going to be feeling strongly what you need to do based on this outer energy and how it's affecting you in your chart. And again, if you have planets in the early degrees of any sign, and I say any sign because these aspects, we've got fire, air, more air, but they will affect planets that are in earth and water as well, by all of the different kinds of aspects that we look at. So this is a full on intense new start. And with the Mercury retrograde, I'm going to say that what you start maybe will need a revision once that Mercury goes forward and maybe even gets finished its shadow period. You might then see, oh, okay, uh, I started on this level, but there are adjustments to be made. One of the things that I always do with Mercury retrogrades is I still go forward. If I have to buy a plane ticket, I buy it. If I need to travel, I travel. Something breaks down, which often happens, I replace it. But when Mercury's retrograde, that's the time to take advantage of insurance policies, return policies, double checking, triple checking, and making sure that you have an out if it turns out that there's some kind of dilemma. Um, Yeah, you can see that this opposition is very, very close and tight. And we then have this fascinating connection between the new moon, the trine to Saturn, Neptune, so that new moon is going to call forward what it is we're brewing on a spiritual level and that we're building in our own lives, wherever Aries energy is. So as you're looking at this, and of course, we're going to do a few charts for people who are here today, but think about your own chart and where you have the early degrees of Aries. This is where you're calling in your soul self to build something new. Where do you have 2 degrees Leo? This is where you're going to see some kind of major change go forward. It's something that feels, like it's creative and expressive for you. Where's the early degrees of Gemini? This is a radical change place. Something surprising might happen. Are you ready for it? And where do you have the early degrees of Aquarius? This is also a place where there's likely to be changes, and you're going to be feeling like you're moving a little deeper into your destiny. And remember also, whenever we're looking at the transiting planets, they refer back to your natal planet and what it's wanting to accomplish, what its goal and its mandate is. So, for instance, when you look at Pluto in Aquarius and where it is in your chart and where you are looking to have authentic freedom, to be yourself, to do what you want to do. Whoops, go back. Uh, to do what you want to do. Think about your natal Pluto, and this defines who you are in your generation, what sign it's in, what house it's in. This is always one of your big underlying soul-centered agendas. And so the changes that are going on in the Aquarian part of your chart are going to reflect back to your natal Pluto and this constantly building energy of destiny in accordance with your generational goals. And this impatient slide that wanted to come forward early. No big changes. I am working really hard on accomplishing what I'm already working on. I'm really digging deep now into creating the Evolutionary Astrology program for Kepler College. And I have a few talks coming up. Interestingly, all in the East. I was born in Eastern Canada, and all of these talks, well, maybe not the Opus Speaker Series because that is a Zoom call, but the Kepler College Symposium is in Niagara Falls, 40 minutes from where I was born. And then Astrology Niagara, that's a Zoom call also, Zoom lecture, but it's in that lower Niagara area of Ontario. So I'm kind of excited about these connections with my homeland. And uh, that is all for now. Let us move into doing a few charts and seeing what's going on with the group today.